Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Mirror Pad Podcast. Just give me a moment. I am sorry. I am out of it right now. All right. Oh, wow. This is a lot different than I was expecting it to be. I'm sorry for all the hiccup, people. All right. So, today I have the honor of sitting down with someone whose work lives at the intersection of education, creativity, community impact, and soul led business. He has experience as a college level professor, has been involved in student wellness initiatives through Algonquin College, and has represented meaningful projects connected to World Water Day and mental health film screenings. He also helped co develop a Science of Interconnection course that brought together Western science, indigenous perspectives, and 3D printing, creating a space for students to understand connection in a deeper and more practical way. His journey has also been recognized at a national level, including being honored by the Governor General of Canada, which gives us a powerful place to explore what tangible impact on community can really look like. So today we will be talking about where his path began, what shaped him, the sacrifices behind his work, his art, his Lightheart Vision community, and how he helps people step into more aligned, soul led work. So, with that being said, welcome to the show, Nathaniel, and thank you for being our very first guest. Just a moment, let me add you to the scene. Okay, there we go.
I I love that I'm your first guest, Stephen. I'm really honored, and I really appreciate what you're doing, brother. I feel like meeting you and knowing about your story of awakening and your mission to help gamify that and make it more accessible, even addictive. Like you say, it's funny because my background in formal education is Indigenous wellness addictions prevention, and but I do agree that we need to make this process of awakening, whether whatever language we're using, living to our full potential, if you're coming more from like a scientific perspective and all the stuff that has to do with understanding our interconnection on biology, or if you are coming from maybe more spiritual realms and talking about awakening or 5D consciousness or true spiritual enlightenment. It has to be a journey that is, we have to be real about it. It is challenging. There are pains to it, but it's also very rewarding because we're awakening to the unique purpose and gifts that we have within us that are waiting and giving us clues. I call them the divine breadcrumbs along the way. And I'm just one of those, you know, out of the, I would say not even having a box, I've leapt into the unknown many, many times. And I can talk a little bit about those ways that I've leapt into the unknown. One of the most poignant ones was actually leaping with my beloved partner, Julia. And after all the craziness of the shutdowns and the mandates and all this stuff, I lost my work as a professor, as a running the Indigenous Student Center, and a lot of kind of personal things happened in a very saturated time. And we when it did come time to coming back to this sense of normalcy, my heart was no longer in serving these educational models, and I realized that I truly have a soul purpose to fulfill. And Julia felt this calling as well, and we asked the question, what is truly conscious community, and how can we contribute to it? So that led us to leaping to the unknown at West. We've done this a few times, and eventually actually having a natural home birth with our daughter on Vancouver Island. And when she was born, it was like the most palpable experience of true miracle right in front of me, the newness of life. And I realized not only is she this amazing miracle, of course, she's my daughter, our daughter, and just, beaming with light and the presence, being born in such a way that's in so much contrast to how they show us in the Hollywood, the films, and realizing that we're all truly born miraculously of pure love and light, and that's what her name means. And she's at the she's the spark and the heart in Light Her Vision as well, and doing what we're doing, not just for her, but for all of our creators' children. And that includes us, Stephen. So I love that you bring the game element into this. And to me, too, I have the heart of a creator. I'm a soulful creator. I love doing spontaneous art and creativity, music making, community building. Like to me, it's all like comes down to art is life. So yeah, man, I throw it back at you because I feel like, it's funny. I asked you, how does this background look? And you're like, it reminds me of the Philippines. And that's where you are. And Julie and I have this world mission to build conscious bridges between community builders like yourself, and then eventually see the manifestation of physical community centers that allow us to really be together in tangible, co-creative ways. And that's what we're all about.
So, man, there was so much in that you just said that I want to ask questions about. But
Perfect.
you know what? I do want to say real quick that I did want to entertain the thought of having a home birth like you had, but I wasn't even in the Philippines when my wife gave birth, so that was out of the question. So
Mm,
maybe the next
mm.
one will be like that. What I do want to ask you about is what was that? What actually You know what? No, I want to understand a little bit more about your name. I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce it.
Yeah, sure.
Owodakin?
Ondakin. Ondakin was given
Owodakin.
to me by a spiritual grandmother, Wineta. She passed away several years ago. And one of the things that I learned from my time spent with many specifically Anishinaabe elders and in ceremony, but from multiple cultures, this is a practice, and I would say all over the world, Indigenous cultures practice naming um, in a way that recognizes the unique spirit of the individual. So the spirit name that carries me, it's not so much that this is another given name, but it really carries me is a name that when you translate it, there's a different paradigm because the languages have different ways of comprehending things, but it translates literally as keeper of the land, not like possessor of the land, but the steward of the land. And this is actually really important for my journey because I grew up as a young man watching how people were treating the land and always feeling like this feels off to me. And I didn't go like the hardcore environmentalist route. I really, to me, went more the way of looking at what's the truth and really coming from a scientific lens and looking at like quantum physics and the nature of light. And actually, some of the art that I'm going to do today is going to talk about that because my first kind of awakening started happening with, really contemplating deeply paradoxes in mathematics and seeing that there is this deeper awareness that we're not always picking up with our senses. And I started having really deep insight into the nature of light and space and all these things. And one of the things I realize is, the land has its own intelligence. So I spent a lot of time in the forest, and one of my favorite infinite games that I do is picking up the land and cleaning up the forest and taking care of it as a steward. And so when that grandmother gave me that name, which was a whole ceremonial process and everything, there's a lot to it, and it's a funny story actually. If you wanted me to go into it, but everything kind of in my journey made sense, and also in the Christ letters, which if you want to talk about it all, he talks about Mother Divine in equality to Father consciousness, and that the mother is all form of land. And there's this sentiment in Indigenous ways of knowing and being that we are the land. And so when we think of our
Mm.
land, our body as an expression of Mother Earth, and we can think of it practically, like every food we ever took into our mouth comes from the land and nourishes and helps us grow. We are literally the embodiment of the land, and so we have a role as stewards to take care of her, all of her creation, and so that's what my name means.
That's that's awesome. And about how uh how close to that time in your life was that to when you started to really preach about your style, your awakening?
Use the P word. I
I love
it's
preaching.
funny. Yeah, okay. It's interesting. Like I'm definitely a natural teacher and I'm an imaginator, so I love creative activity. I'm not here to convince anyone of any truth outside of themselves, but that actually, so that experience of what happened to me, I spent a lot of time on the land contemplating that truth. And then I was inspired with this divine question. I didn't know it at the time was a divine question, but in retrospect, it was. It was very childlike, actually. It was like, what would our world look like, Stephen, if we were all truly doing what we loved and we all had access to the abundance that was very evident to me as I was contemplating the patterns in a leaf and how a leaf comes from these ginormous trees that no one ever takes the time to count the leaves. And in the seed, in this little tiny seed, well, in this case, it was like a maple leaf. And so those are the ones that go, the little helicopter ones.
Hmm.
This little seed produces this big tree. How does this happen? And wait a minute, one seed makes one tree with all the enormity of abundance. And so I was contemplating abundance. And after that, I stood up to go walk back home on this path in the woods where my parents still live to this day. And Christ appeared to me as a being of pure light, and it's like he almost teleport. Well, he did like it was like 3 steps, but it was like teleporting towards me from a distance. And I just stood, and it was like all the ineffable um, colors of light that I beyond anything I'd had imagined before. And but it was the presence of just pure brotherly unconditional love. That moment really changed things for me because it expanded my scientific perspective. Be like, oh, there's a lot more here that we're not seeing. And even though I never saw him leave, I always felt like he was a guide to me. And I never became really religious, but I went to different churches to wonder, like, why did this happen to me? Because I was born in a very secular family, no real religious influence, even maybe just the 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 remnants of like Catholic guilt and stuff. But I had questions like, what does all this mean? And that I felt I was guided by these divine breadcrumbs and several things that kind of led to eventually studying Indigenous wellness and feeling guided to that, and then learning about ceremonial practices and things. And so all of it has been this culmination towards working at that center where I took care of a large group of Indigenous seniors, and then all these things continued, and they still continue, man. Meeting you, I can meeting you and your mission, and then gathering a really wonderful, community of soul-led entrepreneurs. And it's the continuing journey to me that I like to just keep the singular focus as co-creating home, like creating mother Earth and all of her lands as a place where we all feel like we're truly connected and we truly belong, because we all have a really important purpose, I believe, that's hidden within our selfhood, which is the soul's desire to express in this world. If any of that makes any sense.
That makes 100% sense. So what I like to think is we're born into this world knowing, and then society teaches us to forget. So that's
Yeah.
where my whole mind on that whole thing goes. And you did talk to me about the Christ appearance before,
Mhm.
and it just made me think. So I don't think I've told you about it, but like a long time ago when I was like 8 years old, right when my memories started to like where I can remember. I don't remember anything really before 8 years old, but off in the distance we had a big cucumber field, right? And on the other side of the road was just this pure being of light. Like all it
Mm,
was, it seemed like a lady in a white dress with her hair flowing. There was no wind at that time. Maybe there was across the road, but there was
mm,
no way a light could have appeared there. So that's what that just reminded me of. And
mm,
I was frozen. Like I wasn't scared. I wasn't anything except just absorbing the moment.
mm,
Just kind of standing there. Like I couldn't move at all. I tried walking towards it, walking away. It's just my body was just like in paralysis. There
mm.
you go. So that's what you just reminded me of there. So I'm thinking maybe I just wasn't prepared, ready for them to walk to me.
Mm.
I'm guessing.
That's my mother-in-law, actually.
Mhm.
I will let her know. It's interesting you say that, because I remember the distinct feeling of feeling. I wouldn't have described it as frozen, but now that I see it was like a stillness came over me, and I for a while I said, to me, I had no impulse to like drop to my knees and like worship this being, and there was no. It was actually a feeling of equality, as
Mhm.
paradoxical as that was. Like I had this awareness that this being was at a whole other level of consciousness compared to me, but I never felt a sense of like superior inferiority. And to me, that was a big part of the question is like, well, if he is the only true son of God and we are all meant to be, the subservient to this, like I would have felt this. But instead, I felt just pure brotherly love. And when to me, years later, as I was actually working at that same Indigenous Health Access Center, I was guided to finding in a bookstore, which is I've never seen it in another bookstore. I knew it was meant for me. It was a series of letters that he actually wrote through a woman from South Africa. They're known as the Christ Letters, but the book was called Christ Returns. Um, the original is called Speaks His Truth, and then it was edited in North America to say Reveals Startling Truth to get more attention, because they've been really hard to find and I think suppressed on a level, because they actually talk about how his true autobiography, how he became enlightened. And so I would say, Stephen, because, so many of us have had these spiritual experiences, whether we're really young and then push it out of our mind, or we see things and then people say, no, no, that's just make believe. I, I think it's a testament that you were able to perceive that level of consciousness, and also to in no in a way that is also extremely loving and extremely intelligent. I don't share the story of Christ appearing to me be like, hey, I'm special, Christ appeared to me. I think it's actually the opposite. Like, I am meant to share it so that people can experience vicariously through me, but also I think that I was such of a scientific demeanor in my mind and so identified with my own intellect that if that experience had not happened to me, I would not have been able to progress in my own awakening and to fulfill my
Hmm.
purpose. And I really know that he is truly my brother in many different ways. And I believe there is a collective focus right now on innumerable beings like yourself who are focused on improving and elevating consciousness on our world to make things more harmonious with the truth of reality, which what he describes his experience in the desert of becoming enlightened after his baptism was that, okay, nothing is solid, everything is vibrating particles. Um, and that's where some spiritual kind of like things end there. And you hear a lot of people right now, there's a dangerous belief, I think it's a lot of it stems from like the Course in Miracles kind of thing, like everything's the Maya, nothing's real. You're the only one here. And people interpret that in an egoic way. And there's a higher level of understanding of that. It's like, well, there's only one of us and we're mirrors to one another, right? So I want to talk about your mirror path, because there's a deeper relationship here, just like what I said about the land. There's people who believe this is just a simulation and it's not real. Well, who are we to assume that? Because there's a lot of dangerous assumptions that come with that when you start just it can lead to nihilism, it can lead to meaninglessness. And I feel like we are meaning makers and we are creators and we are an expression of
Hmm.
the creative consciousness. And so that with that comes responsibility to stewarding that and recognizing that you are just as sacred as I am. And I have to assume that there is a loving intelligence in you that is just as profound as mine. And when we enter into this mirror relationships and recognizing the sacred and miraculous between us, then we can both rise. But if I think I am the only one here and I am the only important thing,
Hmm.
that is the ego itself. And that is what creates all of the problems and discordance and conflict in our world. It's someone thinking that they are superior to another, and that's what was revealed to Yeshua, to who we know as Jesus in the desert as well, because that was his number one question: is like, well, if love is truly the foundation of reality, why is there sickness and poverty and challenges in my community? And that's what he was shown. It's the ego drive, just exactly what you said. The conditioned society that puts on us as we grow dims our light, and then we start identifying as all these things, and we start losing who we really are, and we start being more and more identified as the ego, and we create these conflicts and we create all the challenges in our world. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I really like that because like a big thing when you were saying you felt brotherly love from like that experience and equality. That is how, like when I was telling you about preaching, right? Uh, over a decade ago, I got super addicted to meditation, and just because I was bored, like I never done any kind of deep dive into religion or anything like that. I just started meditating at some point, and then after that, after I got this, what I called the instantaneous download, is what I like, is why I started preaching meditation and everything. Because, like you were saying, that equality, I was basically in my head going around like, you're a God, you're a God, we're all God, like we're all everything and we're all nothing at once, just depending on how you perceive it. So that's where I was on that frame of thought. So I really like everything that you said. Um,
And you know, it's funny
yeah.
because that's exactly what Yeshua came back to his community. He thought world enlightenment was going to be easy. Like he's like, I'm just going to go tell everyone what I experienced in the desert, and you know, teach everyone this. And you know, it's funny because he had the same, and he does say very clearly in the letters, like it's very the path to truly awakening to who we are is basically twofold. It is healing our beliefs, right, and it's self control. And self control, I like to expand that idea to our creative mastery, right? Self control has to do with like what are we focusing with our thoughts and feelings and emotions on, and that's creative, right? Our consciousness is creative, and so that goes into like the secret territory, but it's not about manifesting outcomes. It's really about our way of being in the world, and then healing our beliefs is like it's another way of saying cleansing our consciousness of all the erroneous things that have separated us or pinched us off from the being a pure expression of our source. And we all have to deal with that at different levels because we take on the ego to be a to go through the challenges of rising in our consciousness so that we can maintain an individual expression of it. Otherwise we'd just be the oneness, and we would be all of that, you know, that expression of God. We wouldn't have an individual expression within it. So that's the rise, whether you call it the bodhisattva path or the Christ consciousness path, or a truly awakening or enlightenment. It doesn't matter. It's unique for each of us. I'll add to, and I believe that it's meant for most of us, unlike characters like Yeshua or Eckhart Tolle, who had profound experiences that really shift everything. For a lot of us, it's a gradual. And he talks about the importance of meditation and practicing cleansing practices of consciousness where we overcome this so that we can further embody the soulful expression that and fulfill the purposes that we come to share. So very much a similar experience. And he thought it would be easy, like you probably did, right? I'm just going to tell everyone to meditate, and everyone's going to like wake up, and we're all going to be living like gods. It's going to be great. And the ego can be very strong in its own way. It doesn't want to let go. It
Yeah,
likes to drive the
exactly.
bus. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking back on it, yeah, I do like to tell people that meditation is a double-edged sword though, because there was a point where I almost like abandoned everything because I was like, I don't need anything. I don't even need food or water. Just
Mhm.
let the world do as it is, as it will, just in everything. Just it just gave me this sort of neutrality that I come to understand that some people would think of it as like a toxic neutrality. And
Mhm.
so it all depends, like you were saying, we are the purpose makers, or I forgot how exactly how you
The
worded
meaning,
that, but
we
yeah.
give things meaning, right? I mean,
Oh,
like I remember listening to Eckhart Tolle talk about it and he was laughing so gregariously, like, but subtly. He was like, we think as humans, we're very we're very arrogant in a lot of ways, right? I mean, even when we call it artificial intelligence, as if we created an intelligence. Like, no. Like, this is an evolution of our species technology, because technology is it's the principles behind the art, the craft, the skill. So it's the idea, the consciousness behind that. And we are a powerful creative species, right? And
yeah.
he was saying, it's funny that we think we can explain away the universe with sounds, which are literally like five in English, five vowels, and um, these. basically air pressure consonants, right? Pa and ka and la, and we're explaining away everything. And yet we can also have these wonderful conversations, and we can imaginate these realms and talk about things. Like if I say, you want to have an experience right now. Okay. So close your eyes and imagine yourself on this magnificent, translucent unicorn riding the cosmos on this like rainbow bridge, and you're ascending, and then the wings of the unicorn, because you didn't realize it's a Pegasus, lifts you up into, and you can go in your imagination. It's like, wow, like we are powerful in our ability to imagine. And um, our level of consciousness can be limited by our beliefs as well. So as we deepen our awareness of what's really going on and connect to that realization of like everything is God, all this is like, there's also a humility that must occur too, because if the ego starts thinking that it's God, and this is what I want to clarify too, because there so everything may be meaningless, but everything has a purpose. So purpose is the mother divine, right? And this is something to contemplate, right? Can you point at anything in existence that doesn't have purpose? And I told this to a dogmatic materialist who thought he was science one day, and he said, well, there's no purpose behind the grass growing beneath my feet. And I said, interesting that you think that. How do you know that? Because purpose is an example of there is intelligence in all things. We know that we share a DNA structure with grass, right? There's purpose. And the more that science goes, true science comes to this realization that there's always this first cause, this first miracle. And so that is an important thing to contemplate. And I think contemplation that leads to meditation is a way that we find that alignment and realize there is this unfolding great mystery that is impossible I can't tell you, Stephen, like this is the truth. Love is the truth. You are love. But you could have, like both of us have had this experience with a being of light, which are very ineffable, meaning hard to describe experiences that help us, that transcend our consciousness. Now the challenge is to articulate and share that experience with others in a way that's meaningful, that we create meaning. It's not that everything is meaningless and doesn't mean, like that can lead to nihilism. It's more that we are creating meaning all the time. It's what meaning are we creating? It's not that there is no meaning. It's that we are creating meaning. That's a more expansive view, right? Because obviously there must be, for life to go through such vigor and vicissitudes of challenge for a caterpillar, right? Caterpillar's perspective of consciousness. Think of that. Just put yourself in the shoes of a caterpillar for a second. They're born these tiny, from a little pod, a little egg, go in these tiny little things. They're always reaching up, looking around, looking for the leaves to munch and eating. Let's face it, eating, as much as it's pleasurable, it's also takes energy. It's work, right? To not only digest the food, but to eat the leaf. So that caterpillar's munching, and it's looking, okay, where am I supposed to instinctively find my thing? So it weaves a web, it climbs its line, it finds a leaf to eventually form a chrysalis, and that all the work of that chrysalis, and then when the chrysalis is formed, there's something in the caterpillar that are called imaginal cells, or imaginal discs rather. And in the imaginal discs is the blueprint of what the butterfly will look like, right? And what happens is when it's in chrysalis, the imaginal cells start activating. And the caterpillar cells, you think they'd be like, sweet, I'm going to be a butterfly, like awesome. Like, let's go. And let's just allow my caterpillar body to totally dissolve and I'm ready to soar. That's the opposite of what happens. The caterpillar's cells go like, what the F? I am a caterpillar. I am a caterpillar. I'm the one who munches on the leaves, and I'm the one who struggles up the line and weaves my chrysalis. And what's interesting is the exact energy that the imaginal discs need to metamorphosize this caterpillar's cells into the butterfly are provided by the resistance of the caterpillar. So that says a lot about the beautiful gift that the ego is. And in no way does Christ demonize or say, the ego is bad anyways. It is what we all must go through because we do need to get up and eat. We do need to do the things that we need to do to survive, because survival is one of the principles of divine. So the ego is a gift, but it's not, just like the chrysalis, it's not meant uh, to be the leader of us. It's meant to be the vehicle upon which we can express. And when it's aligned, when the ego is aligned, it can do beautiful things. I feel like it can connect, it can build communities, it can build wonderful apps that encourage people to develop their self, their self development. And I have this theory that, because I've contemplated a lot, what is the ego, what is the chrysalis for humankind? What do we do? And I think, how do we behave? Well, a lot of us gather these homes, we surround ourselves with possessions, but we know that doesn't lead to fulfillment. So I think we're mistaking what the chrysalis is meant to be, and we're trying to fill our wallets and all this stuff and do all this thing. But I think what we're really yearning for in this era, and what leads us and why we're meeting on school, is that the community element, I believe, is the chrysalis, that we surround ourselves with these other lights that witness us in shining. And that helps us to fulfill our purpose. And eventually, we can all soar in our butterfly self as masters of consciousness. And the beauty is we get to inspire and ignite this in one another. And I feel like that is at the core and heart of humankind, and why beings like Yeshua, whatever expression of Christ consciousness, Buddha, Muhammad, all these beings who have ascended. Bob Marley, I think, I love listening to One Love, One Heart. That's like all these beings who arise and transcend consciousness. They also continue to help humanity, because we are all connected. It isn't just like first one to the top and sweet, I'm enlightened, and now let's go. Now the fun begins. It's like, no, there's still this servitude, and I feel like that's an important part of the principles of love. Anyways, I'm giving you a whole whack of stuff here, Stephen. Oh, I think you're muted, bro. You are muted, my friend. The mute monster got you.
My apologies. No, I was just saying I wish I grabbed a pen and pad just so I could write down the things that I wanted to touch on with what you said, because you brought up AI and how it was I believe it's the next part in our evolution, and the longer it takes is the longer it takes us to evolve. And people are just slowing down that process because of societal beliefs. And you see, I think of it like it's going to be electricity. I think it was Jeff Bezos that said AI is basically going to be equivalent to electricity. And then how it started was like we didn't invent the internet, we unlocked it. Like,
Yeah.
so I think of it as unlockables, as that's how evolution is to me. And then like the seed metaphor, the butterfly caterpillar metaphor, instinctively we know what is coming next, but because of our minds and how we're born into the world as human beings, as any kind of beings with consciousness, we sort of lose that once yeah, we sort of lose that once we get into our communities, like once we're born and we start just forgetting through society, like our instinctual path. And that's what I like to do, is I like to like the P word again. I like to
Hey,
preach that
man.
everyone
Preach
is
it,
an
brother.
expert.
Preach it, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is an
Well, we're
expert.
all
You just,
experienced, right?
yeah, exactly. And yeah, the so the butterfly one was, I wanted to touch on that one a lot. I forgot what it was exactly that I was thinking of. So the caterpillar already knows it. Oh, it made me think of how I believe reincarnation is. So say you're gonna build a, think of a building, how it takes rocks, you break up the rocks, grab that, you get all these metals, put it together, you got those, and then all the glass, get these crystals, melt them, do this and that, whatever it takes. That's how I think when we pass, our soul gets like, because those rocks, those crystals don't perceive us, right? So we know what we're doing. And what if the person that like is in charge of creating our next life we just can't perceive them, but they're just taking chunks of energy, chunks of souls here and there, and then boom, that makes another soul. That's what made sense to me on how people are so talented and prodigies, and
Mhm.
yeah, that's just what made like a large amount of sense to me on how things worked from that one instantaneous download.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing that you can have so much information? I would think of it even more than information. I would say it's consciousness knowledge that comes to us in the form of what we call a download. It's really a seed, and it's just like the same seed that lives in that acorn. The acorn is just as miraculous that produces the oak tree as we are, and it's just as miraculous as the masters who demonstrate what's capable of like instantaneous manifestation and healing and uh, like interestingly, in letter 9, the last letter, which originally was letter 7, Christ talks about some really pragmatic things. Reintegrate or reincarnation is one of them, and it's just a fact of reality. It's just like our psychic nature as well. Like we are an interconnected consciousness of mind. That is just our reality. Whether we've unlocked our gifts or not is another thing. A lot of us have not attuned our bodies to receive those things. Whether people are highly sensitive or not, can have a play on that. And I think too, the on the journey, we gather either chains and thongs or we make amends for them and lighten our load and find more peace and more love in our hearts. And so a lot of this has to do with the choices that we make. And even Christ demonstrated too, like as we gain in spiritual power, the more our conscious develops, well, that power can be used for good or for bad. Just like AI, um, to me, AI, like it's interesting that Jeff Bezos compares it to electricity because I do that too, but in a different way, because I know that electricity is the expression of father consciousness. If the father is all activity in nature, it is all movement. It is the will of life. It is what sets a goal or has a vision. It is the intelligent love, and it expresses as electricity. This is what the letters talk about. And the mother, on the other hand, it's the loving intelligence that is the purpose. It nurtures that inspiration, that seed to become the fruition of the goal, the child, and it also protects the child. So it bonds with the child and protects it. So it has the twin impulses of repulsion and attraction, bonding and rejection, and it expresses as form as magnetism in life. So this helps bridge the gap between our spiritual understandings and our scientific understandings, because there's no materialistic dogmatic scientist out there who has explained electromagnetism. They can explain the functionality of it, that they could talk about, there's the all the particles and this is how it works, in the same way that it can explain this is the hormonal process that happens when a woman gets pregnant and develops to a certain thing. It activates milk glands to form, and it can explain the how, but not the wellspring or the intelligent love that actually initiates all this and brings us into being. And this is where consciousness and looking at what is universally shared between all of us is a bridge and understanding. And I think the most important thing, if you take anything, or if anyone listening from this conversation takes anything from this, it's our relationship with that loving intelligence, with our creator, is paramount, because it shows up in all of our relationships. And I feel like that's at the heart of the Moment Home Miracle, which it came to me as an inspiration, a way of co-creating a community operating system. To me, it's the same thing in the mirror path. It's recognizing our interconnections. And that relationship to me is so pivotal, because it is not only transcendent of us and creates the cosmos and worlds, it's so powerful. It also knows us personally well and wants to have a relationship. And each of us has a unique relationship with it because we're unique. And I think that's what makes life really fascinating.
Yeah, man. Uh, Again, so many things I want to reply on. I really need. So next podcast, I will bring a pen and paper for whoever the guest is. I'll just be doing that, and we are at already at 40 minutes, and we can keep going on with this. But I do want to talk about some of the things. Like one of the big interests that I had was actually um, your Christ letters that you talked about.
Mhm.
You also sent me a piece of artwork that has the Christ letter in it. Uh,
Mhm.
can you explain this guy a little bit?
Yeah, so this is a direct quote from the Christ letters. I'll read it for people who are maybe just listening. So, from birth to death, people believe and insist that their five senses of sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste correctly predicate the reality of themselves and the universe around them. Therefore, because they draw their mind power direct from divine creative power, it is done to them according to their beliefs. So there, one of the beautiful things about the letters is they are letters. This is not another Bible to study and to preach. It really is a contemplation that brings us into an expansive relationship with our creative intelligence, also with the being of Christ Himself, and it helps us to deepen our understanding. So there's a lot in there. And if you'll contemplate it, you could think of a few things. It's like, okay, so what I believe is how I experience life. And you'll see this rippled out in all the people who talk about the law of attraction and all that stuff. And there's also, like what I was talking about, when I had my own transcendent experience, realizing even from a scientific lens, we know there's a lot of things that our senses don't pick up on a very subtle level. I mean, if I could feel what all the work that was going on in all the trillions of cells in my body, and know and like feel and sense all of that, like it would be somewhat overwhelming. Just in the sense that we can only pick up on the visible spectrum of light unless our level of consciousness allows us to see some of the subtler vibrational qualities. And some people have that unlocked gift as well. But really, it's the beliefs. And he talked a lot about this through the letters, is that it's our beliefs that must be healed. So when we think of some of the dangerous beliefs, and we're in a society that's like, well, don't question anyone's beliefs, right? If like whether it comes to religion or whatnot. And I think it's the opposite. I think we should talk more, especially if we have divergent opinions, than less. And so one of the really important beliefs to talk about is this idea of the chosen or the special ones, right? Um, and I think that's one of the most dangerous beliefs there were. And it's interesting that that belief was put on the persona of Jesus himself, is that he is the only special one, that you have to only go through him. And that's not what he meant when he said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. There's much deeper than that. He was talking about what lives in all of us, what he was trying to awaken us to. And so this is a very edgy topic that challenges Christianity, but it's not me, it's written in the letters. So to me, in my mind, it's like, anytime you have a group of people that think they're the chosen one, they're the special ones, they're the center of the universe, well, of course it's going to create conflict, because inherently we don't like to be, put, put down in any way, because it goes against the nature of the truth that we inherently know in our soul. And yeah, I love this way. First of all, I gotta say, compliments, Stephen, for mastering this element. I think this is a beautiful way that we can promote the gifts of one another, and I love that you are becoming affluent in this language of doing live connections and expressing. It's beautiful, man. So thank you
No,
for sharing
thank
some of
you.
the art.
Oh yeah, of course, man. Thank you for sending these art. I enjoyed looking at all of them. The the next scene here is where like I really want to dive into, but is there anything you want to mention down below of any of these guys?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The 117T is a symbol for me, and if you can see it small, it says the Living Harmoniously Fund. Sorry, the Living Harmoniously Vision Fund, and it's actually meant to be a community living trust, and it's part of the work that you and I are co-creatively focused on. It is bringing together hearts and minds to create a world where we all have access to that abundance I was saying, where we're all thriving and flourishing. And Christ has a really beautiful world enlightenment affirmation that he encourages us to read and feel every day, as if for those of us who choose the path of the Christ way to awaken. And 117 trillion was this funny number that came to my mind in investing lots of money into some of these good luck fire hose of information products, business mastery, because I never had those skills. And so it came as a joke, like, I'm going to make 117 trillion dollars by following this, and this from this like guru type personality who, if I mentioned him on the show, but I'll keep names out of it. And that number became a symbol. And I realized, like, I broke it down into the continents, and I looked at like how much money that would mean for community centers, knowing that this is part of my life purpose, that I've had miracles that have showed me that this is part of what I'm here to do, to just help people through community development. And then I did the math. I broke it down, like how many people are on Earth, and like divided by right now, like, or 8.8 billion people or something. It's something like $14,000 plus a person. I'm like, not only is this is a possible number for us, it's not a number like I want to have that on a bank account somewhere. It's a number that it's symbolic of the flow that we can enter into as we really come together with hearts and minds. And those two spirals that create the heart, that infinite heart, is representative of father mother life in mutual restraint, which is the space that creates the equilibrium that is the foundation of reality, that allows us movement and expression and everything. And it is love, and that's where we come from, you and me, Stephen. That's where we're going back to. And I believe it's what we're here to build from as we're here. Because there's ways of building that are not quite from that, so yeah, I really appreciate you sharing some of the light language and art that I make.
Oh yeah, when I was doing your 5D high five at 5. So if you guys are not in Nathaniel's community, go and check his community out and join those calls. They're pretty awesome. We're gonna do a live demonstration of that here today. But yeah, down here is some of the art. I think this one is probably likely something that he does on the live call, like something similar to this ethereal cloud of awesomeness.
Yeah, I love it. I love nebular expressions of light.
Yeah, it's very aesthetically pleasing. The one that
Thanks,
was my favorite so far was this guy right here.
Oh, yes.
And you mentioned how many layers this guy took. And
yeah.
Can you tell us like a quick 20 step by 20 step process?
Well, this was actually when I was first exploring Procreate on my iPad. I always wanted something that I could draw on, and I found, like, anyways, I never really quite had it. So most of my art in my life has been pen and paper, watercolor, ink work, some painting. And when I found this, I was like amazed, because I could do what I describe as a light language, a 5D light language. I think it's rooted in my Arcturian connections, and I like to think of it really as a vibrational language that I call my soul song. And so in this phoenix, and like you said, the dragon and the phoenix are Eastern mythological representations of enlightenment. And so you could think of it like the father and mother coming together and forming equilibrium within us is an expression of enlightenment. And so as I was doing these layers of the phoenix here, yeah, there's probably, I don't know how many layers. I'd have to look at the original file, but it's huge. And it's literally layers upon layers of this light language that has been coming through me for almost 2 decades now, and keeps refining and refining. And sometimes I even like dream about it, and I hear sounds when I'm doing it. And my understanding is it's meant, when you look at it, you can even like blink your eyes fast, especially when I do words, to help embody the feeling of those expressions. I believe we all have a phoenix in us that, you could think of it even like the Kundalini energy or whatever, that's waiting in potential for us, that is calling for us to take the steps to allow it to emerge and to express. So that is the phoenix. And it's also, personally relevant, because when I first met my beloved Julia, I had many remembrances of who I've been in some of those reincarnated experiences. And she gave me a book, a children's book, because I told her I had a dream of being a children's author, and still that is one of my dreams that I know will come to fruition. And she said that she wrote me in this book called I Am Love by Peter H. Reynolds. She wrote "To My Golden Phoenix," and I just thought that was something that's always stuck with me because it's connected to my artist expression. So thanks, man. Thanks for highlighting that one.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I, as you said that you sent this as a standalone outside of it because it was too much to fit in
Yeah.
the form that I sent you. Uh, and I thought it was perfect.
Thanks, brother.
To Yeah, of course, man. I'm just trying to pull it up here. Um, Before we do the artwork, actually,
Mhm.
um, would you actually tell us your why and your what? So tell us why you started. Like, go a little bit more in
Yeah.
depth, exactly
Yeah.
on why you're doing this,
Yeah.
and then we'll
Yeah.
go into your service.
Yeah. I My why is because we all have an important element. I realize like I'm not the star of the show. I could die tomorrow. Um and there's a lot of pain in not living up to your full potential. And when our daughter was born, I realized that in a lot of ways I've been a blocked creative. I've not ever I never really learned how to monetize my gifts, and I definitely had a tendency of being an overgiver and then going into stuckness from being overwhelmed. Um, as a highly sensitive person, I was taking responsibility for other people's emotional, you know, garbage that they would just fling around. And I grew up in a home where I had to suppress a lot of my emotional expressions, whether it was anger or sadness. It just wasn't okay to emote. And so I've been through a lot of pain, and I've definitely done things the very hard way in a lot of ways. And even with the letters, I've been studying these letters for about 11, 12 years now. And, I've, winded in things. And I think there's a very simple way. And he says the only difference between ascended masters and ourselves is undeviating and consistent levels of unconditional love. That's what heaven is. And so my why is heaven. I really believe that we can practically and pragmatically step into the perfection that already lives within us, that we are already perfect. Who we really are is perfect. And that the lie that we tell is one of the beliefs that needs to be healed is people go around telling each other these memes, these mind viruses. Well, I'm not perfect. I do this and I'm not. I think we actually are perfect. I believe that we are perfect. It's a matter of allowing our perfection to show up and to be the miraculous expression that we came here to be. And so that's my why. Because I believe that not only is heaven on Mother Earth possible, home, where there is no more homeless people on Earth. That's insane that we all share this planet. Why is there homeless people? That not only is it possible, but it is our responsibility to create. It's our duty as stewards for anyone who hears that message. So my what is right now the evolution of Lightheart Vision. Lightheart Vision at its core is a profound education, association, and co-creative endeavor devoted to co-creating home. And it's about building bridges with individuals like yourself who are inspired, who are creators, soulful creators. And it's taken the form of a beautiful, dynamic, real collection of soulful creators who are coming together, who care about this mission, and are working together in a conscious, co-creative coherence circle. And it's even more expansive than that. But to keep it really in a way that recognizes it's people coming together, working in pods to synergize our soul purposes, realizing that the synergy of us working together is much greater than the sum of the parts. I mean, I can go do my thing. I can go try to sell my art. I can go try to do this thing, start my own little community center and gather people, or create a gated community in some remote place and have my version of heaven on Mother Earth. But what happens when all of us say, hey, there's something bigger that affects all of our children? Let's come together and let's, from the grass up, we don't need any more gurus telling us. So this is a coherent circle where we're all equals. And that's what I love about being in Indigenous circles. The elders sits there. They have a role to play. I have a role to play as a guide, as a transformational partner, as an imaginator or visionary, or mystic, however people describe me, I don't know. I'm just me at the end of the day. But me is also an acronym for Mother Earth. My expression here is just, it's me. And we is also an acronym for world enlightenment. We have the potential and capacity to co-create this. Therefore, if we can, even if it's impossible, it's probably only worth doing if it's impossible anyways. So I'm one of those quote unquote crazy ones, bold ones who believes that we can change the world. And it's a small group of us that's gathering right now. And I know that's gonna evolve and expand, and you know in a cellular way, I think it's going to organically help a lot of people. And I'm grateful that you're a part of this, Stephen. I feel like what you're doing here and helping people do live launches is actually a really important part of it. And the thing is, like, we can't, no one of us, even if Jesus blasts down here from like the heavens, and like, what are we just going to ride on his coattails and live in a state of paradise where we have to ask him for every little thing that we need? Please heal me, please give me a Ferrari, please this and that. Like, no, we are all masterful in our potential. Let's rise to the occasion together and put our hands, like two L's. So giving and receiving of love. We need, so many of us soulful creators, we need to learn how to really receive it. And yeah, we are perfect. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Oh, and we also did have a question from Beautiful Contradictions. What is light language? Can you expand on that a little bit before we do the art?
Sure. I'll tell you a little story. So light is all around us. And I had this profound moment one time where I just was brought to my knees in tears of gratitude, because I realized I was in the forest and all the light that was shining through the leaves, it was dancing through the leaves, and I could feel it filling my body. And then I realized that I was also radiating light. And just as I see my own image right now, I am giving off light to some level of biophotonic density. I'm expressing light. So light language, the story I want to share is, there was a moment where I was in my mother's womb and I was painting with my, let's say, imagination in the womb with light. And I was just like, you can do this with your finger. If you follow your finger and you even imagine colors of light, you're focusing, because your consciousness is light. Light is your, not only do we receive light with our eyes, we also radiate it, right? Like if you really smile at someone or share love with someone, they can feel that, right? People can feel you looking at them. So I was painting with light as in the womb, and I didn't, have awareness of this until later in my journey. What happened is, as I was doing this, my mother put herself in a compromised position. I think she climbed a little step stool or something, and a strong male voice in the room, my father, yelled at her, and I interpret that as a baby, because I could hear it as, I'm doing something wrong. And then I remember, for like almost my first 20 years of my life, every time I would draw, I drew a lot of, like, I was inspired by comic books and all these things here. This is actually a perfect time to share my screen here. Window.
Oh,
I might have to open up QuickTime, I think, the way that it's sharing. Here, let me just open up QuickTime. So I will get this in a moment. So I would hear this voice as I was doing my drawing at the time. I wasn't doing light language at this time. I would hear it almost sounded like a demonic voice in a way, but what it was hearing my father's voice, and always reminded me of him underwater, which sounds like, stop doing that, it's dangerous. And I would like freeze as I was drawing. So one of the things to think about when you're writing or you're drawing is everything produces some expression of light. Everything is actually a manifestation that you do. When you write happy birthday card or you create something, you're actually creating something. You're bringing it in from the non-physical into the physical, which, in order to be perceived, creates light. So I hope that answers your question. Light language in particular, the form that I do, at least, it is, you could consider it like, it is a vibrational language that I express through my unique um, lens and filter, and it's also meant to evoke. It's meant to express, just like all language, information and meaning that comes through and forms a relationship. So it's a code too, like in the way that Stephen was talking about. It unlocks certain vibrational qualities. Does that? If hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have um, any other questions about that.
Let's see. Are there any other questions, beautiful contradictions for Nathaniel that you have? If you're still with us. All right. And as he gets onto his screen, how's that going for you over there?
Yeah, I'm just, it's interesting because I'm not getting my iPad. So just give me 1 second here because I think I have to use QuickTime. This is like live. I've done this with school communities because it's not giving me the option like Zoom to share because I have to connect to my iPad. So let me just see here. Oh, yeah, I got it. So let me share my screen, move it here. Can you see it now? Can you see my screen? You'll see like a bunch of images.
Yep. And it
Okay.
is there.
Perfect. So as you can see, some of the art that I do with my daughter, she's been learning to paint with lights and stuff. So we have a lot of fun times doing that. It's my daughter there, Luciana, on the swing. So this is, yeah, Procreate. So I just opened a blank page here. And like Stephen mentioned, I do high fives at fives. We have regular calls for the premium members in our community. And once a week, I have an inter-community um, experience where anyone who wants to create that in their community, just reach out to me. And it's doing a celebration. It's really a celebration of gratitude and wins for the day. And also it's about co-creating our what we want to see through sharing our gratitude, because so much of life is miraculous. But if we don't take the time to really focus and shine our consciousness searchlight in a way that recognizes that inherent miraculous, it can be subtle, right? Like even like spending time with my daughter and doing bubbles is something I love to do. And it's something that reminds me of, the magic in life that we easily bypass when we're not really fluently aware of some of the subtle ways that our creator, our hidden being, is showing up, right? It's there's elements of magic that if you take the time um, and really listen with open mind and heart to like the beauty of a flower. Buddha said you can achieve enlightenment from contemplating a flower, right? So in our speaking of flower, you know, in our flow, making time for each moment's awareness, the flow creates what I think of as a deeper connection. As there's all kinds of scientific language we talk about nowadays. We talk about, heart brain coherence. We talk about brain states and awareness. And there's this beautiful opportunity that we have in every moment, whether it's connecting with the breath, and whether it's enjoying company with friends. And it's about opening to this rhythm of life that I like to think of as this golden opportunity to flow into what I lovingly call, and we all I think have different language for this. I like to think of it as the moment home miracle. And I'm just going to write that here so you can see it. And the moment home, as I've said a few times on the show, is that moment where you know that you are a miracle and that life, as we've heard many gurus and things talk about, I don't like that M, redo it. Here, let's do the whole thing. The beautiful thing of Procreate is you can redo many times. So the moment home miracle is this awareness that heaven is available to all of us in every moment. And how do we get there? Well, I think the beautiful thing is that it is unique to each of us. For some of us, it might be painting that thing that has been calling to you. It might be going for a walk in nature and spending time with the trees and the wisdom that they share. And so really it's about connecting. And so many of us feel stuck, and so many of us feel like we're doing it in isolation, and so many of us feel confused as to what's the next step because there's so many people. One person says you got to sell your things, you got to do low ticket community. Some people say you got to, you got to do this way, you got to sell real estate so you can get the money, that be at peace and be at freedom. Well, what if the way that you are meant to do it maybe it hasn't even been done yet? And if it has been done, that's fine, but you still need to find your way. What if we can do that together? So as we expand and appreciate our layers and levels of being, we multiply, and we have the way of synergizing our gifts and brightening them together, so that when we create something that's even perhaps impossible seeming in the moment, like how could I ever do something like that? Well, all of a sudden it becomes, a question of the miraculous. Here, let's go to one of these interesting brushes here for this one. We talked a little bit about the ineffable spheres of creation. And when we come together and brighten our way of being and amplify it together, well, we are fulfilling what we came here to do. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And we need one another in order to fulfill everything that is on heaven and Mother Earth. And it might look like a mess at times until we see some of the hidden meanings that are around us. And Stephen, cut me off at any time. I think I'm maybe going too long here, but I just wanted to, do
Oh
this
no,
last.
you're good.
Not, so sometimes we don't always see it, but it's there in every moment, whether we have the eyes to perceive it or not, have the ears to hear it or not. It is present and there. And so my invitation is for us to do it together in a way that we no longer have a divide, where we synergize our gifts and also our abundance. And that's what Stephen and I are working on. We're finding ways of synergizing our soul purposes in a way where we all rise to flourish and thrive together. And I think that is what it is all about. It's coming to a way where we illumine our life and come more and more into more and more layers and levels of being, where we return to the pulse. And so, even when all we perceive is the simple and the ineffable bubble, when playing with our daughters and sons, um, there's magic in it. So make room for that magic. Make room for the miraculous, and make room, as Stephen reminds us, for the mirror path that is in front of you. And that is my little presentation for now. And yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I gave you some gray space.
There you go. Well, let's get it back to here. Yarne said, Yarne for Humanity said, hearing with the entire being, not just with our ears.
So true. Yeah. I love that, Yarne. Thank you. Thanks for all the beautiful comments.
Yeah. Let's just see. Does anybody have any questions for Nathaniel at all? Anything that you would like to say? I think I have the. Let me see.
You have any questions for
I
me,
just.
Stephen? We talked about a lot of stuff, man. And I think you wanted to keep this shorter, but hey, man, you brought on a
Oh.
you brought on a communicator. So
Oh
thanks to
no,
you
that
too.
was perfect. And let me get this other scene up. I just need a.
That's funny. You only have answers. I feel like I only have questions.
Yeah, no, I love all the. What is that called? Is that what
Thanks
they
for the
said?
compliment. Yeah, he said, "Have no questions, only answers." LOL. I love it. Yeah, I'm grateful to you too. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. Questions and answers is maybe this is a good place to start. A good gift of this conversation is ask good questions, because ask great questions. And there's something that I like to think of as a formative questions. When you ask questions that maybe stretch your mind and consciousness, like my question was, what would our world look like if we all truly did what we loved and had access to the abundance of life? And that led me directly to an experience with Christ consciousness, and it's been like a guiding question that has expanded so many ways in my life. So ask those questions that move you and that stretch you. And if you want to ask some questions together with Stephen and I think it would be amazing for you to connect with us on a call. Um, what we're doing, it matters. It's important, and it is an investment not only of money but of time and heart. But what will come from it, I believe, I have this paradigm in life. Um, it's what makes I think life so much fun is laughter. And this, I have this funny acronym that's actually, there's more meaning to it, but it's gregarious, and it's like actually there's some characters in that, but gwig is the first part, and it stands for give what you wish gratefully. And when we start giving and entering into the generosity cycles of life, our life expands. So that's what I'm here to do, is to shine my light. And thank you so much, Stephen, for shining your light, brother. I really appreciate what you're doing with the Mirror Path. And yeah,
Yeah, it's I really I really feel so blessed to have come across you because everything that you are doing now is what I wanted to do over a decade ago. But
mm,
life, work got in the way. Just I let it get in the way, and I think it happened at the perfect timing. So like the tree, when you seed it, it knows when it's going to grow as soon as it gets watered. So I think it was in that aspect, it was getting watered to what it is now, to where I
yeah,
made the where I wrote the book, made the curriculum, started the app, and now I'm starting this podcast all around internal mastery of each person. Like so it was just divine timing is what I like to say.
that's what it is. And
And
it's an important note because we ignite one another, right? Because we can't fulfill everything we're here to fulfill without one another. When we try to do it in isolation on our own, it doesn't work. And that's why I think so many people get burnt.
yeah, so you see interesting. I just tuned in. For me, it's like desire of doing good. It's like divine desire of experience to experience love altogether. I love that. Have you
Yeah.
been to Yarne's uh community? It's
I've not. No, no.
okay,
It's the
it's
first
a
time meeting him, actually, I
oh,
believe.
all right. You guys should definitely connect. Same with Beautiful Contradictions here. They're both very in line with everything we're
Hmm.
doing. And Nathaniel's Light Heart Vision is probably one of the best investments that I'm making. So I would recommend that to anybody, really. You see, and
Well, it's
Beautiful
interesting.
Contradictions. Yes. What's
So
interesting?
two things are interesting. So beautiful contradictions. I love that name because I believe that paradox is a way that we actually enter into higher levels of consciousness. So I think that's beautiful that you chose that name. And also, I didn't put the price up yet for our premium. It is a way of connecting with us for the high five 5D experience. Um, and I didn't know what to price it. I think a lot of community builders like, how do I price this? What should I put it at? Because we were just been a free community for so long, and I decided to use the golden ratio. So I'm using that Fibonacci sequence. So we started with 0, and then the first it was $1 for a year, and then it was $1 for a month, and then it was $2 for 2 days in a row for a month. And now we're up to $5, and we're on the last. Well, yesterday was the last day, but I haven't increased it yet. So anyone listening to this and wants to go in there, you have a bonus. It's going to go up. Like, I'm not going to stop it. I'm just going to keep letting it go up. It's an experiment. I don't know, but I know that there's so much value in the things that Stephen, like guys like you, are doing. I think that, when people really realize how much value there is in the awakening journey, in meditating and finding peace within yourself, like people would give everything to, I think, feel that. Some people chase the billions, they get to the billions, and then they feel like, oh, I still don't have peace. It's like we can start with peace, and then we can grow those treasures together, and that makes it more fun. I think we can all be on beaches like this in Stephen's country right now.
Yeah. Actually, I just found out Beautiful Contradictions is actually in the same country. I think an hour away.
Oh, amazing. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you folks being on the call and all the wonderful comments.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry, Nathaniel, that I couldn't figure it out before you hopped on to live stream it to your destination as well. So we'll
That's all good.
do that next time.
Yeah, use me as a trial. I think it's awesome, man. And keep up the great work, Stephen. Like you're an amazing builder and an amazing learner. I really appreciate all the gifts that you bring to not only your community but to school as a whole and to our world. So thanks for shining your light, man. And I know I talked way more than you during this conversation. I clearly had a lot to share.
That's the point. That's
Okay.
the point. Like, this is for whoever is on here. I just asked some simple questions.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you for being the first guest of Mirror Path Podcast, Mr. Nathaniel Parant. Yeah, if you guys, you know what, let me do this. All right. So I'll be the only one on the screen when we get here. So if you guys haven't been on his community, just use this QR code right here, and it'll lead you straight to it. Also, down below, you'll see all of his, all the places you can watch and connect with him. So there's his YouTube, his Apple Podcasts as well, a bunch of different places. But this guy right here, get it now. All right, we'll just say our goodbyes here, sir. Okay, and we'll close it out here. And
Thanks again,
thank you all for tuning in. Thank you.
Highest blessings, everyone. Best wishes, and thank